Today I'm going to be installing my Make It Modular billet angle kit on my S197, but before we start, some quick notes. Coilovers are required as well as an 18-inch wheel for tie rod bolt clearance. You're also going to want an 8 to 9-inch wide wheel. You're going to want to have your bump steer measured and corrected when you're getting your car aligned as well. That way your car is nice and smooth and you're not having any problems at the track. You can expect up to 65 degrees of angle at full lock with the optional rack spacers, which I will be installing today with only 3 degrees of Ackerman. Now the kit comes with everything you need except for 1 drill bit and 1 tap. The drill bit size that you need is 37/64 and the tap size that you need is 5/8/18. Now if you need the angle kit, the rack spacers, the tap, or the drill bit, I'll go ahead and put a link to all that down below. Now I already have the car up on jack stand, so the next step of course is to remove the front wheels and remove that outer tie rod from your knuckle so you can go ahead and start removing your inner tie rod. All right, so as you can see, I've got the inner tie rod, outer tie rod completely removed, and what that's allowing you to do is actually access this bolt because that's where you're going to need your drill and your tap, so you want all the room possible to get in there. Now this bolt and this bolt right here, they are 18 mil, so that's all you need there. And then on this back side over here, to finish removing the lower control arm, it is a 21 mil. I'll be using this snap-on wrench right here. You can see I've already got it placed there. So that's exactly what I'm gonna do now, is go ahead and completely remove this lower control arm so I can drill and tap where the new bolt's gonna go. All right, I've got all the bolts out. Now we just gotta remove the lower control arm. Okay. All right, cool. All right, so now what I'm gonna do is take my 37/64 drill bit and I'm gonna go ahead and drill this hole out. I'm gonna use this side right here as a guide, and basically you're just deleting the threads. Once we're done with that, we'll go ahead and tap. All right guys, I'm gonna show you guys how to set up the arm and where all the bolts go, because it can get kind of tricky. All right, so we're gonna start out by laying out all these bolts. As you can see, they're different sizes. If you wanna take a screenshot and see which ones I put a washer on, do that right now, and I'll show you where these bolts start going. So this first one we're gonna do is the one without a washer. This one's actually gonna go into the knuckle adapter, and that's gonna go in right here. And you're gonna do that first because you can't put this onto the spindle, the knuckle, because you can't reach this bolt to tighten it. So we'll go ahead and put that in right now. Now the next bolt we're gonna do is this one over here. So this is gonna go over here on the lower control arm. And the first thing you're gonna do is put this bottom plate on. It's the one without the big arch in it. So as you can see right there, this one has the bigger arch. But the next step is to go ahead and get one of your heims. You want this flared edge on the bottom. That way when you put your lower control arm on, and this heim goes over it and it seats right into it, or just flip it just like that, and then this upper arm, this upper plate will go on and sandwich that together, and then you're going to head and put a washer and of course your nut. Now this part's really important. When you're putting these plates on, you want to make sure that these are facing this way. For example, this one's facing this point right here, and this one's facing kind of like this point right here. So just keep that in mind when you're putting this together. All right, our next bolt is this one right here. This is the one that's going to go into the hole that you drilled out and you tapped. So that's going to be this point right here. Again, same thing. We're going to go ahead and put these into our heims, just like so. And then this is going to go in, and it's going to screw into that hole that you tapped earlier. Next, we're going to make a 1/4 inch spacer. Let me put this on the right way. And that's going to go just like that. There's no nut because again, it's going to screw into the subframe that you tapped. All right, next bolt is going to be this big one right here. So the first thing we're going to do is put in that for our our heim. Go ahead and get that situated just like so. Go ahead and put this one in. And this is gonna go in just like this. Again, this is gonna be in the car. Don't worry about that space, it'll be covered up because this is going onto your knuckle, followed by washer, followed by your nut. Now the last thing, of course, is the extended tie rod end. That's gonna go into this bolt right here, just like so, followed by the nut. So that's how you set it up. So let's go ahead and get this bad boy in the car. All right guys, first thing I did was actually put this together because it's going to be a little hard to reach once it's in the car. So you want to go ahead and button this up. Make sure to leave these slots nice and open. You're going to reuse the hardware that you took off from the car. So you want to make sure these aren't overlapping so the bolt can go in nice and easy. All right, now that the arm is in place, got the rear tightened up, this front tightened up. Important note is that it's adjustable in the rear so you can get a little more caster. I went ahead and put it in the neutral slot so we can adjust that later if need be. So next thing we're gonna do now is put on the adapter here so we can go ahead and mate the lower control arm to it, and we should be good to go. All right guys, as you can see, the lower control arm is on, the rear point is nice and tight and buttoned up. Got this front point there and the point right here onto the adapter. The only thing that's left is the tie rod. As you can see right here, you get the tie rod extensions. But before we do that, you can also get rack spacers for even more angle. So before you add the rack spacer, what you want to do is remove the rack limiter. And then what you're going to do is put this rack spacer onto your inner tie rod just like that. You're going to add a little dollop of some Loctite if you want, and then you're going to throw this on. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that right now. And last but not least, a zip tie on the boot for good measure. Okay, so now that this is done, the only thing that's left to do is put on the beefed up outer tie rods and get in alignment. So I'm doing the driver's side now, and I want to mention, if you put the lower control arm in and you put these two bolts in here, neutral, you put this bolt in, and the control arm is binding or it's really stiff moving up and down in this motion, chances are you're going to have to loosen up this rear heim and space it out just a little bit. For me, it looks like 4 threads showing. When you count these right here, like 1, 2, 3, 4, seems to be the sweet spot, and it should be nice and loose. You don't want any binding conditions. All right guys, one thing that I forgot to do was putting the spacers on your outer tie rod heim to lower this. Again, more or less spacers is how you're going to adjust your bumps here when you get that measured out. If you do what I did here and you don't use any spacers, you can already see that this tie rod is hitting the adapter, which is going to limit your steering angle. So what I'm about to do now is go ahead and remove this and add a couple of spacers. All right, I just want to show you guys that I used 2 of the spacers, and that's enough room for it to clear. So again, the correct way that you want to do this is go ahead and measure your bump steer. That way you can put the correct amount of spacers there. That way your wheel and tire is just moving in a nice even motion up and down, and you don't have a super wobbly steering wheel. You can also see where mine was hitting right there, the tie rod end, into the lower mount. Right. All right, the last thing I really want to mention is going to be that sway bar. So yes, I currently have my sway bar connected with the BC coilovers. You get a shorter sway bar end link. After speaking with Matt Sopa, the sway bar can actually cause some binding issues. And before I spaced out my tie rods, I did kind of test it in the garage, and you can feel where there's a hard stop as you're turning the wheel. And as the car continues to roll forward, you can feel even more angle kind of taking place. So I'm assuming it's because even now at this angle, he said there should be a little more angle left in it. But now at this angle, as I got the wheel and tire turned, I can see the tie rod end link kind of pulling and putting that tension on the coilover, causing sort of that binding and tugging issue. Talking to Davey Peoples and a bunch of other Mustang drifters, basically it's going to be preference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to test out this current setup with the sway bar connected at a sanctioned drift event. That way we're not doing stuff on the street. And then what I'll do is at that same event, I'll go ahead and remove the sway bar completely. I know Turtle Media, my boy Isaac, he does not run a sway bar at this time. So that might just be driver preference. So if it continues in an actual drift, bind up my steering, that's something I definitely don't want. So for now, we're gonna go ahead and test this out. Then we'll go to no sway bar. So if you want to see those results and you're putting an angle kit BC coilovers on your S197, make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and leave a comment down below with any suggestions and any questions you may have, because I'm on this journey with you guys as well, trying to figure it out. The good thing is that this community is nice and strong and there's tons of people willing to help. As you can see, I've got the car on the ground. Everything's buttoned up, everything's finished. I really just need to give this car a mean wash. Now, I did not adjust or measure for my bump steer, but I'll be getting that done at the Resto Mod shop because they are the professionals. So what's next for me is to get the car aligned, get bump steer measured out, and go test the car out. I'm super pleased with this kit. Everything went on seamless. I had such an easy time putting everything on, except for that one measurement that I told you guys about. You're gonna wanna go ahead and make sure your arm doesn't bind or you're gonna be running into more problems. But this kit is one, it looks good, it's lightweight, and it's a direct bolt-on. Like, what more can you ask for? One last note is that everybody in drifting says don't jump into an angle kit, and I hear that, I get that. Every single one of my S197 friends, Turtle Media, aka Isaac, Edwin Flores, Edward, they're all driving S197s. They told me that my biggest issue is that I need an angle kit. These cars have horrible angle from factory. So what I'm hoping is that in the future, when we go test the car out, I have better luck with that super snappy rear end and I'm not just spinning out for my entire drift day. So as much fun as it was, I really want to be able to link the track. And I think my secret to success is going to be the Make It Modular angle kit. One last thing I did was I maxed out negative camber on the front of my coilovers, and I didn't do that at the last drift event. So hopefully that helps as well. All right, guys, that's going to wrap up today's video on the S197 Billet Angle Kit install. As always, if you have any questions, leave a comment down below or hit me up on Instagram. I find it a little easier to answer questions via DM because you can actually send videos and I can show you what it is I'm talking about versus trying to decipher what it is in text. So that's it for today, guys. And next video, we're hopefully going to be doing some drifting. Peace out.